guys, so it's 7 o'clock. It's pitch black outside. I've just put the chickens to bed and now I want to show you what my pond looks like at night. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! That's what a pond looks like at night. So now I come here with my trusty torch. Although I absolutely love the lights above the pond, I can't justify putting a light outside. But also it's because I want to respect the day light and the night time cycle for my fish. I think it is crucial and beneficial for their metabolism. Also some people feed at night, I don't. So of course if we keep koi it's because we like big fish, we like colored fish and big fish, and obviously I absolutely love big fish. The food is crucial depending what you want to do with your fish, but for me I am not pushing my fish to become absolute monsters or to compete, because I do not show them. I will push them if I can to 75 centimeters, but I do not want them to become any bigger. So as you can see, the fish are very active. They're feeding. Since I put those polycarbonate sheet at the front, so the pond is, as you have seen in my previous video, the pond is now fully enclosed. The temperature outside is at 8 degrees tonight. This morning it was 6, and the temperature of the pond is at 13 degrees, which means in the space of 5 days I have gained 2 degrees in the pond. So nutrition is a very complex topic, and one certainly that should not be compromised on. So if you are becoming a little bit more serious about koi keeping, you need to think about your feeding goals to start with, the hard rules, the factors and the impacts. I know it sounds crazy, right? But nutrition for koi is not just a matter of throwing a few pellets in the pond. But before I go any further, I want to say that I'm only going to talk about nutrition from a regular koi keeping point of view. So not nutrition for showing or breeding. And I will only talk about what I've learned over the years of animal keeping and koi keeping and other fish keeping. What I practice with my koi. And also what I have experienced. And no, you don't need to have 20 years of experience in koi keeping to understand all that. So what is your goal? Are you feeding to keep your koi healthy? Are you feeding just for growth? Are you feeding for a show? Or are you feeding for a breeding program? Or are you feeding for any other specific reasons which impacts on the food type, the protein, the volume, the pellet size, and the frequency of feeding? So the most important factor of the feeding regime is the capability of the filtration system. I don't want to lower the tone of this video, but if you take care of what's going in, you're going to have to take care of what's going to come out. So I didn't really have any plans for the structure of my pond. I knew it was going to be a rectangular pond, a raised pond, but I knew that regardless of what my pond would look like, the filtration system would determine how much I would feed my koi and the number of koi I would be able to keep. So the funds were limited, but I knew that I would not skip on the filtration system. Of course, I couldn't afford the drum, and because of where I was going to build the pond, the drum was a no-go really. But again, the filtration is a completely different topic and a massive topic in koi keeping. Ultimately, there are a few rules, a few hard rules that you probably follow without even thinking about it. So do you keep young fish? which definitely need high protein food. The high protein is harder to process at low temperature, whereas the wheat germ is easier to digest in cold temperature or cold temperature. You can't feed the torsai the same way as you feed a 7-year-old koi. I'm not an animal nutritionist, but in our modern days, you wouldn't feed a kitten the same way you would feed a 10-year-old cat. So technically, koi can only absorb 38% of the protein, I am told by a vet specialized in fish. So if you feed more than 38%, the excess goes directly to waste. So with koi feeding, there will be a few factors to consider. You'll have to consider your filtration, your water temperature, the size and number of koi, and if you've got a mixture of it, I've got my smallest one is 20 centimeters and my biggest one at the moment is 50. The length of the day and the length of the night, and the auto feeder. I personally don't use an auto feeder. I am lucky enough that I can work from home, and the holidays for me are very limited, especially at the moment with COVID. But I prefer the manual feed and the relationship that I've developed in my koi, but also because I can observe and hand feed at times. I never measure their food. I feed as the koi consume, and I'll just make sure that my filtration system can cope. So my guide is, if the koi eat the food relatively quickly, and if the water parameters and clarity are good, then I don't change anything. Just remember that the amount you feed will have an impact on the cleaning and on the growth. So at the beginning of October, I filmed a little video about the food that I was feeding throughout the summer, as well as treats. And I just wanted to show you that. And I was just almost at the transition to start the autumn winter food. So let me show you that video. I always stick to the same brand, but I always mix the brand. And the reason for that is because I always think that each make has got their special ingredient or their special way of doing it. And for me, by doing that, I get the best out of different make. I tend to feed 90% of floating, 10% of sinking. The reason for that is because the sinking food is much more dense and therefore much difficult to digest. I feed them manually about 5 times a day, and I will show you how I do it. So if I look at each packet, this is the one from Cutterbrook. It's 4.5 millimeter. For the 4.5 millimeter pellets, which that one is, the crude protein is at 42 and the crude fat is at 13. This is the ash is also something that I look at. I like where the crude ash are below 10%. The crude protein, why is it called crude protein? It's only because it's crude protein means that it's for animal food, and it's the way you can measure the amount of protein in your animal food. So if you don't already know that, whenever you look at the composition of a food, whether it's for animals, whether it's for humans, your first ingredient is normally what is inside your food the most. The first one is wheat, then we've got poultry meal, and then we have fish meal, and then we have soya protein, and then all various kind of oil and vitamins. But what I'm looking at more here, the crude protein, which is at 42%, and the ash, which is at 8%. The fact that it's got poultry, well, we all know that, you know, they all add poultry and it's not necessarily just fish meal that is inside there. My next one is from Danny's Koi Pond. So this is the Coppen's food. Okay, so here I've got 3 different ones. This is the special pro grower with a 3 millimeter pellet. This is the special grower a 6mm pellet, and this is the sinking pellets, the 4.5mm sinking pellets. Okay, so this one again, those two have got and this one I believe as well. I don't have the label on that one, but Danny said it was exactly the same. So this one again has got 42% protein, crude protein, and the ash is at 8%. So, and this one is at 6% ash, so a bit lower, which is much better for me. The Coppen's food, so Danny's KoiRun food, has got again the same thing. It's got soya, poultry meal. My next one here is my favorite food, sake hikari. At the moment I'm feeding with them, I'm feeding my koi with the growth medium pellets, okay, which is from 5 to 5.5mm. And in this one the protein is at 43% and the ash slightly elevated, 15%. So much more than what I normally take, but the ingredients and the way the food is made, and with barely any oil on it when you put it in the water, to me that is an excellent food for me. The last food that I use is the JPD, the Shogun. Okay, so this contains the prebiotic. So what a prebiotic? Basically it's a it's what is added to the food for the good bacteria, and it stimulates the growth amongst the pre-existing good bacteria. This one is a super wheat germ. It helps the whitening. It's a high digestion, and if I look at the back of the packet, so this one contains 36% of crude protein, 7% of crude fat. The crude ash is 10%. So to me this is a perfect combination. High protein but not above 40%, but the ash is at 10%, which is why I do not want to go above. Okay, the composition is wheat as usual. Obviously this is what's going to help to bind it together, and fish meal is the first one, and if you, there's krill meal as well. And if you look at all the composition or the ingredients, there are no poultry, nothing. This is purely fish, wheat and krill. So this is how I prepare my food. I basically have my container, and I just put one of each, and I just mix it. And that's it. And my container is ready for the week. A bit more than that, 10 days. The second part of my feeding regime for my koi is treats. So treats, just like for us humans or for animals or whatever living creature you're feeding. Treats are what it says, treats. Not like me, we eat treats much more than normal meals, right? So treats are to be fed probably once a week, twice a week, if that. Treats equal moderation. Okay, so what have I got here? First one is the common mealworms. You know, we all know that. Those are like mealworms. They are mealworms, much bigger. Okay, if you look at this compared to a normal mealworm, let me get one. Right, this is the difference in size between the two of them. I buy this on eBay from a little store that is called Aqua Shack. Then what I've got is natural dry grass hoppers. Okay, so normal hoppers. Those are extremely high in protein, 60%. Then I've got here a bag of mixed treats. So in here I've got all sorts. Next one I've got some dried river shrimp. So very similar to this one, which I normally use, but I wanted to try this one as well from this Aqua Shack. Bloodworm pellets. They come into this form. Okay, they are sinking pellets. Really like them. Just have to be careful, because if you leave it too long in the water, they will stain your water. So you just have to be very careful. And this is why when I feed them you know, by hand, and I wait until the babies, especially the babies, they go absolutely crazy for that. And the last one is just natural treat, and you all know that, mussels. So those are just a normal bag of frozen mussels, which I then defrost, and then I cut them in three like that, cut them in three, and I just feed it to the koi, and they absolutely go mental with that. I don't give any prawns, because I absolutely love prawns, and I'm not going to share that with my koi, despite the fact that I love my koi. No, they actually don't like my prawns. I don't know why. They never eat them, so I just don't bother. So I know that a lot of people feed them with fruit. I don't, again, because mine just don't like it. I will try again with the oranges, but I think in all my food and all my treats there's a sufficient amount of vitamins and proteins and everything, so I don't tend to give them any fruit. And this is how I treat my koi. I just prepare a mix, and then I just have to take it once a week or twice a week. Another treat that I use is the fly mix. So this one I do not use it, I do not mix it with all my other treats, okay? I feed them separately. And this is how it comes. So they are fairly large little triangles, you know, fairly large. So if you've got some babies, maybe soak them before. This, they absolutely go crazy for it, and I mean really, really cool. It's all based on insect base and pond fish food. Okay, so it's from Laguna, and again you've got 34% crude protein, and on ash we have 5.5%, which is really, really good, really, really low, so that's excellent. But I use this as a treat, not as a main food, obviously. But this, they go absolutely crazy for it. One thing I wanted to show you is all these kind of treats, they will stain your water, and I prepared something just to show you. Okay, so I put a bit of everything and I mixed it in the water. I tend to leave it like that for about 10 minutes. So I just removed the treats and I put them on a kitchen towel just to absorb the water, but this is what is left. So this is why I soak all the treats that I give them. So I don't feed earthworms or snails, despite the fact that I eat snails. But I am worried that it might carry parasites, but also bring some bad bacteria into the pond. But mostly because of the pesticide or the plant fertilizer that we can put in our gardens, and not necessarily you, but your neighbor might. I don't feed rice as such, but I do use brown rice to make a hard paste, and I will show you how to make that in another video. You've also seen Marek's video where he's been using barley. So a lot of people do paste or supplement food with you know, either barley or brown rice. Or I know that a lot of people who show koi do feed rice prior to shows, because apparently it can help with shiroji on the koi, which is the white color. I don't use color food enhancers, first because I don't show, but I do use, however, the river shrimp, which might have an effect on the red pigmentation of animals, and you can see that with flamingos. The color food enhancers only brings out what is already existing, the colors that are already existing. So it won't turn an orange into a red, and this is what people really have to realize. My understanding after talking to a few koi show people is that the color food enhancers is only used for a few months before the show to increase the contrast of the colors. And then they stop feeding weeks prior to a show, so the body size reduces slightly. Then the skin is not as stretched and the scales are much closer to each other. And the colors on the koi look more vibrant. But that's a whole different topic, which I won't talk about now, and probably not talk about at all, because as I said, I don't show and I don't have any experience in that area. The only thing that I'm not keen, talking about shows, the only thing that I'm not keen on is that we need to remember that the koi feed a lot in summer. And we have to push their growth until autumn. So why would we put our koi through weeks on end of not feeding during the summer when they needed the most and when they wanted the most? So to me, the date for the shows in England are, and probably in other areas, are completely at the wrong time. They should be more towards the October, November, when the feeding regime starts for the autumn and winter, which shows which happen a lot in Japan and in Belgium, in Holland in the autumn, and definitely not during the summer. This brings me to talk about what I feed my koi during the winter. I personally don't stop feeding in winter. I think we've all had drilled in our heads that you need to stop feeding below the temperature of 10 degrees Celsius. Well, again, that's down to personal choice. And again, I think you need to remember that nutrition research and the food technology now is so advanced that some food have been specially designed for the koi to carry on feeding safely through the cold months, providing they want it, of course. So this is what I do for the winter. It's a very, very simple one, very easy one. I carry on feeding the JPD all season that I've been feeding throughout the summer. But now what I add is the Medikoi wheat gem with garlic. For this one, the crude protein is at 21, so much lower, and the ash is at 6%. So again, I stay below the 10% of ash, which is really, really good. It contains garlic, and I will talk about what garlic can do. The composition is the wheat feed, wheat germ, maize gluten, soya, salmon oil, garlic, and calcium. So this is really, really about the wheat and the garlic for this feed. I've got my bucket. And all I do is just mix. Yep, no more. Okay, and all I do is mix that. We all know the ability of garlic to minimize parasites. It is used in human food and it is used for animal food. When I used to show rabbits, I used to put a clove of garlic in each water bottle. Garlic is used in a lot of animal food and it's a good natural wormer, but also a fly repellent. So it's no surprise that garlic is used in koi food to minimize parasites, and it can be very beneficial in winter when the koi immune system is very low, and they have got less ability to fight the parasite infestation. A lot of people also use crushed garlic in summer, as flukes really don't like garlic taste going through the koi skin, so this can help. Some people just cut in small bits and feed them directly to the koi, or they put them in a paste again, or they put in other food supplement, which again we can talk about in another video regarding the paste and supplement food. Koi are blooded animals. It means that their activity and their feeding routine depends entirely on the water temperature. So they're not hibernating animals like my tortoise Matilda there, who is now in full hibernation until probably next March. So I personally don't think it's fair or even necessary to stop feeding for months if the koi want some food. And providing that we feed the appropriate food and that the volume is controlled, then everything is fine. You have to think that if you have some very young koi in your pond, they probably won't survive with no food at all. As I explained earlier, food technology now is so advanced that we probably need to go with what the koi want rather than what we've had drilled in our heads, so, which is probably a dated practice. But in the last 5 years, however, I've stopped all food for about 10 days during the coldest period to encourage a healthy dormant period. After continuous research, I have found that a lot of Japanese breeders do the same. So I'm pretty much feeding all year round. It's just the protein level and the quantity that changes. There are many other things in koi nutrition to think about, and I can only briefly touch on it, otherwise this video could go on forever. Koi pellet size is also very important. So if you've got, like me, different koi sizes, my little guinea wren goshki is only 20 centimeters, and my biggest chagoi and the kujaku and possibly the goroma are now just above 50 centimeters. So there's a difference of 30 centimeters in between them all, and therefore a different mouth size. So if you use larger pellets on the young ones, they will probably find it very difficult to chew the pellets and swallow them, and they wouldn't get the nutrition that they need. But also in winter, larger pellets can be very difficult to digest. So a lot of people, including me, feed smaller pellets in winter. Floating or sinking pellets probably need to be taken into consideration. Carps have got what is called an inferior mouth, which means that their upper jaw or top jaw is longer than the bottom jaw, and you also extend. You probably have noticed that their lip extend to hover whatever is at the bottom of your pond or against the walls of your pond, and they also have barbels, which assist in finding the food particles. Basically, they are like mini sensors. So naturally the carps will feed from the bottom, but we've accustomed them to feeding from the surface by feeding floating pellets, because it's nice to watch. So I'm just in my conservatory and I just wanted to show you the difference between the floating pellets, which, as the name says, they just float, compared to the sinking pellets, which go straight to the bottom. Okay, and basically, naturally, the carp, the mouth of the carp is exactly like that, and they just go and hoover whatever's at the bottom. Whether floating pellets, we've accustomed them to do that, to come up and grab the food from the top. So again, I'm not a food expert, nor I am an animal nutritionist. But food and the cleaning regime is always something that's interested me, and given that I was born with animals around and that my entire life has been directed by animals, nutrition is something obviously that I was highly considering no matter what animal I was keeping. So and I guess that if I was applying all this to myself, I probably would be as fit as I was when I was a basketball player. So if you've made made it to the end of this video, well done. I hope I haven't bored you to death. And I hope you found it interesting. As I said, if anything, you probably do a lot of things of those things very naturally. But I hope it can help you to maybe think a little bit more about the winter food and the size of the pellets and the density of the pellets and the protein content and etc. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and if anything, I'll catch you on the next one.